morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Sorry, I had a camera malfunction there for a second. I hope everybody's doing really well this morning. Grab your cup of coffee and let's talk about the astrology and human design of the day. How is everybody out there enjoying the days post eclipse where it's quieter? It feels a whole lot less crazy, feels more welcoming and inviting, and it feels like things can actually take place now. Like the energy has, allowed us to really walk through a portal now, and things that we wanted to accomplish but couldn't are now able to be seen, at least as a way to get somewhere, to finish something, to do something. Good morning, Mimi. I think we missed you yesterday, Mimi. I don't remember seeing you out there. So you were missed. And Suzanne, good morning. I hope everybody's having a good day so far. We have another one of those kind of quiet days, which, you know what, I'm kind of loving that idea of being able to not have to put out fires or stumble through the day, having to, I don't know, just sort of keep moving from one thing to another. It's now very, smooth. I don't know how long that will last, but enjoy it while we have it. Today we have the moon in Libra still, so we're still dealing with smoothing our relationships and with the relationship we have with number one, ourselves. And I hope everybody's okay. Mimi, your vet, was it just a regular checkup vet visit? I hope everything's good. I know you have kitties. Speaking of animals, I have to tell you this because this happened yesterday. My daughter has a Great Dane, a Golden Lab, and a, what do you call those dogs? Dachshund, Dachshund. And been put down, you help. I mean, I was freaking out. I said to Heather, my daughter, I said, you took the dog, right? And sure enough, they saved Chip, the 1-year-old Great Dane, from being destroyed because while the dog was chewing on a bone and the 9-year-old son got too close or tried to take the bone away from the dog bit him. Didn't even break the skin, just basically nipped at him like, get away from my bone. And they were going to have him put down for that. I think it's totally unconscionable that people would jump to that conclusion instead of maybe deciding that as a family, that dog isn't good for them and maybe finding him a new home. Lots of people take in, dogs and cats, be as a refuge, as foster families until they can find another animal or find another home. So my daughter now has 2 Great Danes, a Golden Lab, and a Dachshund. And guess what? All the dogs love one another. She sent me a video yesterday of all the dogs playing in the yard. And, that luckily they have a big yard and they have loving hearts. So Chip the dog, Chip the Great Dane, was spared from death. And anyway, it was just amazing to me that people jump to that conclusion. I don't know. Just don't know about people. They must not be dog people, and they probably, or animal people. And I would hope that they don't ever get another dog because they don't deserve to have a dog if they're going to do that. Okay, off that soapbox, let's go on back to the day. The day the moon is in Libra, relationship smoothing out. Oh my gosh, I just stepped deep into the doo-doo of the shadow of gate 18, which is the talk of the day. Oh my gosh, I love it. So I will be able to go back and give you the exact example of what it is that the shadow of Venus is bringing to us, because now that Venus is in Libra, we are really bringing in the concept of what she will bring to us during this retrograde phase of hers, which, by the way, does not begin until let's bring my little notes to me. We enter the shadow period on September 2nd, and the retrograde begins October 5th at 10 degrees of Scorpio. Excuse me. She'll have gotten into Scorpio, and she will be retrograding backwards to 25 degrees of Libra. So while she's in Libra, we noted yesterday that she is going to be picking on and hitting every one of the fear gates, or almost every one of the fear gates in the human design system. The fear gates all reside on the spleen. The spleen is the oldest center in the body, and it had arisen as a way to keep us alive, for us to survive. I'm looking for my little template here so I can show everyone again where the spleen is. So this was a day that we had recently. Here's the spleen. These are the gates of the spleen. And the spleen, it has served its purpose. Humanity has survived how many millions of years, right? We've survived through, some of the worst chaotic energies that have ever, been on the planet. And assuming that we can move through the energy of these fear and we call them paralysis points often in human design, because the gates on the spleen can become places where we get stuck in an old tape or in an old, series of thinking patterns. And I know that the spleen is very far away from the mind, but it puts pressure on us to behave in certain ways. And so we're going to be looking at that over the next several weeks, maybe even might take us longer than that, to look at the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi in each of the gates that Venus is going to be at. And let's see, for right now, she's at gate 18 from the 11th through the 16th, so through tomorrow. And then she will transition over to another gate in the human design spleen, which will be gate 48, the gate of inadequacy. That's the fear in that gate. But right now we're dealing with the gate of judgment. Gate 18 down in the spleen is all about judgment. Let me show you where that is. Gate 18 is the very last gate right here, gate 18. So in your own human design chart, if you want to take it out and dust it off, you will see whether you are open here, like this is an example of an open gate 18, there's nothing here, or is yours a hanging gate 18, which is only about halfway, or is it connected all the way over here to gate 58, or actually, you know what? Hold on, I want to check something. I think Saturn, yes. Saturn moves back to gate 58, but not anytime soon. Okay, so we don't have anything sitting at gate 58 right now, but in your personal chart, you may have the whole channel defined, you may have only half of it, or you can have it completely open. Either way, now it is going to be defined in your personal chart, and it means that this becomes an object of your attention, right? This is something for you to pay attention to. All right, so what is it in gate 18 that we're dealing with? Today, we're going to take a look at the shadow. Tomorrow, we are going to look at the gift and the siddhi. We may even move a little bit into no, we probably won't have time to. Tomorrow, we'll deal with integrity and perfection. And today, we're going to deal with judgment and looking at how does all of that arise in us as humans. And I think you're going to be surprised a little bit at how that comes up. And what is it that we are here to do about it? Let's take a look at what people are saying here real quick. Michelle Brooks. Good morning, Michelle. I read once that back in deep mythology that Venus and the moon were twin siblings and that Venus's name as sibling was Lucifer. That's a possibility. I'm sure it is. In Lucifer becomes the fallen star or the devil. But the name Lucifer is literally light. And I don't know how it got to be. I suspect it was all in the repatterning of the ancient knowledge when Christianity erupted onto the planet and began its takeover from the divine feminine being taken over by the divine masculine, where the pendulum was swinging, to the other side, where we had lived in balance with nature and with a love of nature. The change happened when we began to love the mind and the expression of the more left hemisphere of the brain, the more masculine side of the brain. So these things have a coherency to them, right? It's not just that we swing over to the feminine or we swing over to the masculine, but the expression of that through the mind. When I was talking about, and I wish I had that, I don't have it close by. I'll see if I have it. When I was talking about the Mayan calendar years ago, Carl Kalaman, who's written many books on the Mayan calendar and what all of that meant for us as the evolution of consciousness is taking place on the planet, he made some very interesting graphics about how each of the time frames either highlighted one hemisphere over the other, or when they both came into balance and both were either hidden, or at times when everything was in the light. And we have entered into a time where both hemispheres, I believe, are in the light. And so that is why we are seeing this rising now of everything coming into balance. And it's been many thousands of years since that actually happened on the planet. And we may go through several iterations of this over time where we, go back to one hemisphere over the other, where we go back to blind on top, where we, have different iterations of this. The difference now is they come much faster, right? The periodicity is much faster than it used to be. And I guess what I'll do is, because otherwise I'm going to waste a lot of time looking for this. I don't have it right at my fingertips, but I will look for that today. Oh, is that it? Nope, that is not it. I will look for that graphic for you today and maybe show it to you tomorrow, or I'll post it on the page. That really shows the difference. And what that difference is meaning is how the light is entering into our awareness. And with just our awareness, it would also be about our DNA. So, we are, the light isn't just hitting our head and stopping. It's coming all the way through and filtering into the very cells of our body. And our cells get the message then from the overall evolution impulse that we are to focus on the left side of the brain, which would mean we're focusing on the logical mind side and the more masculine energies, or it gets the message that we're now focusing on the more feminine side, or the more creative right hemispheric part of the brain. Or are we not focusing on either of them? We're just living through a time of kind of unconsciousness, kind of asleep while new energies being integrated into our DNA. And it's really fascinating when you look at how this is apparent in our world. So I'll try to bring that to you tomorrow. But the gene key 18 is called the healing power of mind. And so we're going to take a mind trip, but the mind trip is taking us through the spleen and not the mind, the head, or the ajna. And that is because a lot of what happens from the mind, in the mind, is triggered from what happens in the survival center in our body, i.e. the spleen. So judgment being the lowest expression of this gene key. And we're focusing on this again. If you're just joining in, we're focusing on this because the planet Venus is here right now. And she will also make another trip through here later in the year after her retrograde. And I don't want to find those dates right now for you, but because we're in the moment right now, this is our focus. And here is a deep sensitivity in our DNA to imperfection, which gives rise to our criticizing and judgment, right? Criticizing and judgment. And it isn't something that we can get away from. This is not, let me tell you, this is not something we can get away from. We are kind of DNA rooted in this ability to judge and to criticize, or to maybe more importantly, see imperfection, to be able to see where things are out of alignment. The purpose being, of course, to be able to bring it back into alignment. But before we can get there, the shadow begins in childhood, in our, the 2-year-old that is suddenly challenging the authority of its parents. Because essentially this is a healthy part of our being able to gain our own authority, to a healthy part of our being able to differentiate, to become differentiated from our parents, to be able to stand out in the crowd in a different way, to be able to call our own path forward to us. And this process of differentiation, of authority challenging, becomes more acute in the age 14 to 21, in the third cycle of 7 years in our lives. And maybe one of these days, because right now we're still learning, I'm setting this baseline for all of you to learn this stuff. We'll take a look at the holographic of your human DNA, of how you're designed through your DNA, and we'll be able to see how, at what gene key was in action at this particular age that you were at, and how did you walk through that minefield? How has the energy of the gene key that was in play while you were at 14 to 21 affecting you, and how you've become an adult? Because this is the age where you have extraordinary growth in your mental faculties. And this is creating the bridge to how it is that you are going to become a completely functioning adult. And you may think that this is a process of making the transition for yourself, but it is really highly dependent on your parents' frequency. If they take your teenage years and you're striving for authority and to differentiate personally as an affront to them, as you challenging their authority, then the transition for you as an individual to adulthood doesn't finish, doesn't complete, because the parent blocks you at whatever it is that their frequency is. The individual, you as an individual from your parent's frequency, then can get stuck in victim mind, because your parent is telling you can only go so far. I'm only going to, the leash the invisible leash that your parents are holding you to, you get stuck in the victim mind. Now, let me define victim mind for you. The conglomeration of all the undermining, judgmental thought patterns throughout the world. Victim mind, the conglomeration. And this is what Richard Rudd says in his book, The Gene Keys, by the way. It is the conglomeration of all the undermining, judgmental thought patterns throughout the world. So how many of your own thoughts throughout the day are affected by this victim mind? Think about it, right? Victim mind is an inner world of gossip, worry, complaining, i.e. judgment, and criticism. And it keeps us literally from our abundance. It keeps us literally from expressing the whole of who we are. It expresses us from really it keeps us from expressing the full joy, vitality, and bliss of the gate 58 at the other side. So let me show you the human design chart again. This way. If I bring in this gate, you can see gate 18 down here at the bottom corner, and it goes all the way down here to the root center at gate 58, which, remember, over the last several months, Saturn was sitting at gate 58, the gate of joy, vitality, and bliss. He was teaching us. He's a teacher. He is the karmic engineer of our evolution. And he was teaching us all about how to encompass more joy and vitality in our lives. So now Venus comes along and she's at the other end. And she's showing us where our judgments and our complaining and our worrying is keeping us out of integrity, keeping us out of the pathway to joy at the other side, gate 858. So non-judgment, here's the irony. There's always these conundrums in human design, and I kind of love that idea. The conundrum here is that Non-judgment, which we are always key on saying, right? Metaphysical people are always talking about non-judgment, right? Non-judgment is impossible because it's how the human design, it is how your human mind thinks, it's how it works. Judgment is a part of who we are. It is when you identify with what it is that you are thinking that you get into trouble. Because it's also judgment that allows you to see that the picture hanging on the wall is a little bit askew and I need to perfect it by bringing it, just a little bit closer to, parallel to the floor. It's amazing, isn't it? So non-judgment, let me say that again, is impossible because in your DNA, in the very fabric of your DNA, is the way that your human mind works. It works to be able to, how was it I said? It works to be able to give you sensitivity to imperfection. And then to be able to take that ability to see imperfection and then perfect it, heal it. The problem is we get it stuck in judgment and we get it stuck in the criticizing and we get it stuck in complaining and the victim mind. And gate 18 of judgment is paired from a DNA standpoint with the gate 17, which is up in the ajna, of opinion. Judgment paired with the gate of opinion. Judgment is rooted in opinion and opinion is rooted in judgment. Those are the shadows of those gates, by the way. And underlying all of this is the need for us to be right. Right? When we say to somebody, your behavior is causing me pain, it's because we want to be right. So the question that I hear from, I think it's from Buddhism maybe, do you want to be right? Or do you want to be at peace? Right? The full realization of this particular time period of our focus on the shadow is the realization of your own perfection, the realization of your own perfection. And I want to take a look at comments. Hold on, I'm going to go backwards in comments here. And good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. Let's see. The religions made Lucifer evil. Right. That's very true. And I don't think a lot of the world really understands that. I don't think there's any Christian, that's a blanket statement, and I don't mean that. But I really think a lot of people who are a practicing religion do not understand what happened at the time period that came in. Right? They don't really understand the ramifications of what occurred at the time that Constantine decided to become a Christian. He was a pagan, but that was creating a lot of problems in his society. In order to remain as the leader of the Roman Empire, he needed to come down on one side or the other, and he came down on the side of Christianity because it was gaining in power. Right? There were a lot of people that were in the Senate or the legislative body of the time that were converting to Christianity. And the way that you cause people to convert to a new belief system is you outlaw the old one. You make the old one evil. You imprint the new symbols over the old symbols. And if any of you have ever seen the Zeitgeist movie, which is horribly violent in the beginning, but gets into some really good information as you move in, you'll understand that what happened is the Jesus in Christianity becomes the new sun god. Right? In Egyptian times, there was Ra. He was the sun god. In the early Greek and Roman times, there was Zeus or there was Jupiter. They were the sky gods or the sun gods. And then overcoming that became the more pagan religions where they were naturally dealing with the energies of the sun and the earth and all the animals living in balance. And then an imprint happens where Jesus becomes the new sun god. That makes me call into question whether he was even a real individual or not. but it makes perfect sense. For example, did you know that in pagan times, Christmas was observed because of the changing of the light? That for the 3 days around the winter solstice, they're the 3 darkest days of the year. And on the third day, you know how the Nicene Creed, on the third day he arose again from the dead, according to the scriptures. On the third day around the winter solstice, the light again begins to return to the northern hemisphere. And that is because, it hangs at its lowest on the winter solstice. And at 3 days later, you begin to notice it 1 degree higher on the horizon. In time, it measures out as 1 minute or so of more daylight, the return of the light. So Christmas, or winter solstice, at least in the northern hemisphere, was always about and always celebrated as a time of the return of the light, right? The darkest days of winter were behind them. And the light, it was like the assurity that the sun would again come back to summer. In Christianity, it becomes a time where Christ embodies the return of the light. It's all just mythology. But the myth was given power by a leader who recognized at that time there was a shift happening on the planet from the more feminine to the more masculine, right? A shift of the pendulum, the swing. So interesting stuff, right? Let's see. The religions made Lucifer evil. April, good morning. Morning tribe. Happy hump day. We made it through yesterday. Yesterday was an awesome day. Suzanne says, my mom taught me how to lose control, not how to maintain control. Relearning now for myself. Absolutely. That is so key, right? Because, our parents did the best they could for us. They really did. They did what they knew for whatever their consciousness level was, whatever frequency they were at. Almost every one of us had parents who were probably at a lower frequency, perhaps, than what's possible for us now. And that's an artifact of evolution. But you have to be aware of what it is that you are vibrating at. That's the key here. Wish my mom would have had you. See me now? Well, that was fun. Apparently I'm having a router problem, and the router just decided to disconnect. My camera went dead. You saw it as a message that said I was frozen, but I'm here. I hope let me know that you are seeing me. Yes. Yay. Thank you, Londa. And hello from Mexico, or hello to us from Londa in Mexico. I hope everything's going well for you down there. That's awesome. So let me go back and see what people's comments were, because I think that's what I was doing. Oh, you guys did get my message twice. How fun. Good morning, Gail. Yes, I froze. Tom, good morning. Good to see you out there. And okay, so I think I had finished. So what we were really getting to is the idea that this particular focus of Venus at the shadow of gate 18 will be about our understanding what's going on up here, listening to what is going on in your head every day. And I wanted to, before I finished up, I was saving this sort of as last, but I want to talk about how it is that we express the shadow of this energy often. There's usually 2 extremes. If you notice in the book Gene Keys, you see usually in the shadow you see the words repressed nature. Maybe if I move back a little bit, and reactive nature. So we usually, when we're expressing the shadow, we can express it in one of the 2 extremes, right? So when we are expressing it in the repressed form, it's called an inferiority complex, right? Where we're undermining ourselves and where we're conforming, we're letting go of parts of ourselves to conform or fit in with what we believe people want us to be. This is sort of like the black moon Lilith when she's in Gemini. This is sort of like the North Node people in Gemini, right? Where you tend to want to give away your power to others to try to keep things, in a way where you're being accepted, and not understanding that true acceptance comes when you really accept yourself and live from that place. In the extreme or the reactive side of this, it's a superiority complex where the person judges other people, undermining others to feel superior or to shore themselves up or make themselves feel better. So those are the two extreme ways in which this shadow can show up. So inferiority complex, superiority complex. And isn't it interesting that that's kind of some of the energies that we've been experiencing in the world, right? In the world. Just look at the president of the United States. When does he feel best? When he's judging others and bringing them down. We watch it play out all the time, the shadow of this gate. And so I want to go back. I want to go back to the beginning of the show where I was telling you the story about the dog and how my daughter took in the dog and how I went straight to judgment and criticism of the people who were giving up the dog. I want you to know how insidious this is in our lives, right? It just came out of me. I'm not immune to any of these things. I'm still on this planet learning with all of you. So thinking about that, then, I mean, it makes me totally uncomfortable, but it is exactly what I did. Rather than saying, rather than not even going there with it. I didn't even have to go there with it. I could have just said they saved this dog from, with 30 minutes to spare before his owners had him put down. And I could have spared you all the of my own victim mind. But I didn't. Maybe because it would make it so very titillating for me to be able to share how my own faux pas with you and how easy that comes to us, right? That nature of judgment and criticism. It is a natural part of who we are. Again, it isn't something that we can just turn off. But what we can do is monitor our mind and what our mind is doing with that information. And then, of course, our mind connected to our mouths and then what we speak. Because when we take it from the mind and we move it to the mouth and we speak it, we give it voice, we give it form. Remember, in human design, the throat is all about not only communication, but manifestation. What is spoken becomes real. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. There's this connection to something being said and then it being real. And yeah, I'm human. All right. So let's see. Any questions about how judgment is working? Any questions about victim mind and what can we do about it? We're actually going to talk about what we can do about it tomorrow as we look at the Siddhi and we look at the gift in here. The gift of this particular gate, remember, is integrity. The Siddhi is perfection. Yay, right? Perfection. And learning the realization, the highest level of this is that realization of our own perfection. And literally in human design, what we say about this gate is that everything is perfect in this moment, in this now moment. It couldn't be anything other than what it is. So perfection lives in the moment. Suzanne is pointing out something huge. My mouth tends to disconnect from my brain during the retrogrades. Yes, that is a part of it. But often our mouths are disconnected from our brains, or our brains are disconnected from our mouths. And maybe it's scarier when they're connected. I don't know. Maybe the disconnect helps us to think before we speak, right? To breathe before we react. Hard to say how that really plays out. Yep, perfecting myself now in my life. The important thing, though, is to recognize, Suzanne, and anybody else out there, that everything is perfect right now in this moment. It may not be exactly what you desire, but it is perfect because it couldn't be anything other than that in the now. And remember, the gate 18 that we've been talking about in this perfection is on the spleen. And the spleen is the center for not only fear, but time, intuition, and health. And in a time sense, it is about the now, in this moment, because we only have this moment. The future is not assured and the past is not here. It's gone. So, rooter, not router. Tom, that's because you're Canadian. You are from Canada. In America, it's called router. Ola from Canada. Yes. It's funny because he's only, as the crow flies, he's about a 3-hour drive from me in Canada. But their language, is so different from ours, and ours is so different from theirs. It's too funny. But I love it. Rooter instead of router. Hoser. Yep, you're a hoser. But thank you for joining us this morning, Tom. It's good of you to get up early enough to be here. It's good to see you because Tom, as I mentioned, I think it was yesterday or the day before, gave me the 2 new words that we are living through now, and that is thriving and flourishing. We are thriving and flourishing. We are going to release ourselves from the victim mind, which the definition of that, again, was the conglomeration of all the undermining, judgmental thought patterns throughout the world. We're releasing ourselves from that. And we are righting the ship, so to speak, to understand that everything in this moment is perfect. It will be different in the next moment, but in this moment, it's perfect. In this moment is where you live. In this moment is where you breathe. And lastly, about this, in human design, of course, I showed you the human design template. It's way down here at the bottom, the gate 18, right? It sits at the very bottom over here in the spleen, right there. And it is very far away from the throat with the center of manifestation up here. So it does have a direct connection through the gate 48. We'll talk about that on another day. But for right now, the spleen in this does not have a direct connection. Gate 18 does not directly connect to the throat. So it does sort of tell us that we are never meant to speak directly about our opinions, about our judgments, about our criticism, because it's so far away from the throat. It isn't meant to be expressed except through an invitation to do so. So when you are ready to understand that perfection is really about your own idea of perfection, and if you want to speak that to someone else, it has to be with an invitation. So when you want to tell your best friend that dress looks crappy on her, you Sagittarians out there have a tough time with that, right? Because you go right from the thought to the mouth to the, blah of it, the blurting it out there. Or the possibility of being that blunt is, always ever present with Sagittarius energy. Remember that you don't have an invitation, unless you have an invitation to say that mom is the word. And that would be your friend literally saying to you, how does this dress look on me? And then you telling her how that dress looks on her. Or you saying, you and I are really good friends, right? Would you mind if I tell you what I think about what you're wearing? And that person says, no, I don't want to hear it. And you shut up. Or the person says, yes, I would love your opinion. And then without being judgmental, you say, another color might be better on you. When you wear blue, your eyes pop, right? You can do things in a more gentle way. It doesn't have to be, you look frumpy in that dress, because that's painful and hurtful. But again, you don't even speak of that unless you have the invitation to do so. And when you do, it is constructive and not destructive. All right. So going back to the moon today in Libra, it'll be right now, it is in a square 90-degree angle challenge to Pluto. So we are being challenged to transform this energy at gate 18. You may be faced with several situations today because now you have this awareness around it about where you are succumbing to victim mind. And by the way, it's always there, right? It is always there. It's when we identify with it. If you hear it in your mind and you go, oh, there it is again, that voice that wants to drag me down, and you just stop your thoughts and you turn them around. You can turn it around and think a different thought. And that is true consciousness when you hear what is going on in your head, and you can stop that and change it, transform it. That is the power that we have today. That is the power that we have actually through Pluto, even no matter whether it is connecting with the moon or not, but Pluto is regenerating that ability for us. The moon is also in a sextile to the sun today. So thinking back to the new moon, where the moon and the sun were in a conjunction, they have now reached a 60-degree angle of separation. The sun has moved ahead, the moon has moved ahead of the sun. And we are now then looking at the energy of our creations and our intentions, whatever it was that we opened up to at the gate on Saturday, the new moon solar eclipse gate. What is the next iteration? What are the next things? How are we going to bring our talents and our gifts to more strongly and powerfully to bear in the world? And that is preparing us for Saturday's movement of the sun and moon into the square 90-degree challenge, which will then be about our first crisis point, where we want to give up on ourselves, where we want to give up on the dream, whatever it was, the intention. So that's coming. Void of course moon will be a very short one. Again, we've just been lucking out the last I think these are gifts that we're receiving, very short void of course moons, because everything else has been so chaotic. So the void of course moon on the 16th, this happens at midnight 57, so 3 minutes to 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning, and until 1:55, so about an hour. Void of course moon on the 16th. So for those of you on the East Coast, that means it'll be about 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., 4:55 a.m. So still ending before your work week start, or your work day starts, and that's a really good thing, right? We get to sleep through the void of course moon. But it means that possibly there are some keen insights that may be coming through your sleep that day. So maybe keep your dream journals tomorrow morning next to your bed, so that if you wake up and you've had, some dream time, you may be in receipt of some really key information for yourself. All right, let me take a look here. Our minds and bodies were made to experience bliss, which takes work in this world. Yep. Suzanne says, thank you, Tom. She's thanking you for the key words that you gave us, thriving and flourishing. Thriving and flourishing. Love it. Your family is from Toronto, Suzanne says, but Tom's over on the other side in Vancouver Island. Courtney. And that's it for now. If anybody has any questions, any comments, any need for clarification, please reach out and let me know that you need some clarification. You can do that through the Living Astrology Facebook page, which is where we all are right at the moment. You can email me, you can messenger me. And if you are in need of a reading, then you can also reach me through my Living-Astrology website to schedule a reading for yourself. In the meantime, tomorrow we take up the gift and the Siddhi in the gate 18, and that will be awesome, right? Because 90% of our focus should be on the gift and on the highest expression in creating that to release the shadow of the gate 18 in this case. In the meantime, I wish you all a wonderful day. Mwah! Much love to you all. Take care. Sorry for the blip of the router issue. And let's hope you all have smooth sailing with your internet today, and that Mercury's little trickster self doesn't get involved in your lives. All right, everybody. Bye for now.